happy 4th of July.
Yeah, happy 4th. You're all suited up, ready
Oh,
to go.
yeah, I'm also wearing pajama bottoms, so like
Okay.
let's
That's
let's
wicked. I
level
always
set
watch,
this.
I love watching Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank whenever he does interviews because he does a screen whenever he does an interview,
Uh,
and it shows him on the interview like the typical headshot, and then he's always wearing pink slippers or thongs, and then like pink pajama bottoms.
oh God, I haven't noticed that. I haven't seen that, but that's basically me most of the day. I'm always dressed really well from the waist up, and I always have like blazers ready to go to slip in.
Up top.
And
I used to do that, and then I don't anymore because what this is funny because I guess you teach what you learn on your own from mistakes. But I did an interview, one of my first interviews. I don't know, 2012. I was changing jobs, and it was a video interview for a job in Germany. And I'm given it was a video interview, like they didn't want to fly me out yet.
yeah,
So way back then, I don't even know what they used. Probably like one of the first ones, WebEx or something. Anyway, gave the interview. I just put on like I had the suit, jacket, the tie, everything, but then I just had on shorts, and I had to lean over to get something, and
they can see.
shorts. I can't, like the mesh shorts came up, and I'm like, oh my god, did I just do that? Because I rehearsed in my mind, you're not gonna have to stand up, everything's fine, but it happened. So
Do you
never
think
again.
were you denied the position because of your mesh
Never again.
shorts?
I wasn't, but I still am like, never again. I'm always gonna have on like at least I don't know khakis or something. So.
I think it's smart. I do think it's smart. There's something about my mother used to always say, "Don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want."
Yeah.
And I think there's a big element of that goes right through my business. Don't put, have the resume for the next job, have the profile for where you want to go.
Sure.
Like there's that, it's so intermingled with me. And I do think that when you are dressed, like when you have the makeup on, or maybe not for the guys, but for the woman, when your hair is done, when you're wearing a nice outfit, you feel better about yourself.
It's it's scientific fact. So I used to write when I first started doing this. I would just write blogs because it would just allow me to read a bunch of stuff and then write about it. And I remember looking at all this research on the physiology and the psychology of it. So people, for example, the first thing that I found, which still blows my mind to this day, if you carry around a heavy notebook or clip chart. And so they tested this even with MDs. So they're like, okay, is this like work for higher, people of higher intelligence, lower intelligence? They did even for MDs. If the heavier the clip chart you hold and carry around with you, the more intelligent you are on tests after you carry it around. The higher you score.
That's
Same
crazy.
people. If you have a warm cup of tea or something versus a cold glass of something when you're at networking events, the same people initiated more conversations against all these controls. If you wear a suit, right, or the corollary to whatever you want to wear, right, you actually hold yourself to a higher standard and again will perform better on tests afterwards, like actual logic quantitative tests afterwards. So it's truth. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. It's just a fact, and people hide from it because it's really just laziness because it's easier to do less. But then I think you also have to have your working memory.
Hmm.
Like if you're a super pro billionaire, you have like a huge following or what, and you do something like that, it can be quirky or whatever because you've achieved mastery. Like you
Hmm.
have the framework.
Hmm.
But if you think you're going to do that to be cool to get to that place, I think that's where people get in trouble. Anyway,
Yeah.
not to go off on a tangent. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, but there's also I was talking to a gentleman who's in like a really like developer, highly technical type of position, and he said to me when he's interviewing, he said, if a person comes overly dressed, that turns him off. So it's such a balance to recognize like where are you within that
Culture.
the culture, the system. Yes, you want to look good, but I mean, I was talking to my sister about this the other day. I took my mother to a reunion. She was a teacher, and one of the last classes that she taught, they just celebrated their 50th class reunion, and they said, we'd like for you, the teacher, to come. So I took her. It's a class reunion, and it was at a nice fancy restaurant. I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to take my mother, I better dress nice.
Yeah.
I show up. I'm so overdressed. It was a little uncomfortable, to say the least. I
Really?
didn't get the memo that everyone was going to wear tie-dyes. So here I am in a black dress and heels, and everyone is
That's
wearing.
good though, because so I had one of my first jobs. I was working for this software company, Flojo, and I went. You would travel and speak as like an application scientist, really travel and speak to different groups of people, and mainly doctors. But this one, there would be these events you'd go to afterwards, right? Anyway, this one guy told me, I never forgot. He's like, either be the best dressed person there, or the worst dressed, because
Why?
you
No, why
want.
the worst? I can understand the best, but why the worst?
It's just zigging when people are zagging,
Okay.
right? So if everybody's like in black tie and you're the person that's in like a polo or a t-shirt or whatever, right? You're going to be the person that has like counterculture too cool. It's the same reason
Yeah.
they put out on Christmas Day like a horror movie, because they know there's going to be a counterculture,
Yeah.
right? Or they do vice
Yeah.
versa. On Halloween they do a fuzzy movie, right? So
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
there's something.
I felt like the spotlight was on me because of the way I was dressed, and as uncomfortable as it was, I will say this: I prefer to be overdressed than
Yeah.
underdressed in that situation, and I don't think anyone left going, what was she thinking? I think more or less people were like, oh well, she brought it all to this
Yeah, no,
reunion.
no. What's fascinating about this to me is it's one of these areas where so in the book Influence, right? Like one of the kind of the Godfather books of persuasion and what how people act, which is just it's all just based on a lot of science on the key things that people do and respond to. It talks about some really interesting experiments with wearing like a suit or nice clothes and jaywalking, and how many people follow you, and then the type of car that you have and how long you can stay at a stoplight before people honk. So if you wear a suit or dressed really nice and you start crossing the street,
Mhm.
right, even in like a city where you get fined for it, like I lived in Germany and you get legit fined, there's cops waiting at the streets. But if you fall, even in those countries, if you are wearing a suit and you cross, everybody will follow you. But if you're wearing a raggedy t-shirt, whatever, and they tested this with all different types of clothing, and as the clothing got nicer and nicer, more people would follow the person because they're like, oh, they're, and it's crazy because most people, the reason it's so effective is because people think it's not effective. That's when the best influence happens, is they think, okay, I'm not going to follow somebody because they're in a suit or have a nice car, but they do. They think they don't. They even might have spite against it,
Mhm.
but they actually end up being influenced by it anyway. That's how powerful it is. And then the car one was even more fascinating because it was basically, if you had an old beater car and you stayed at a stoplight, it was like half a second, the person behind you's honking. But if the car gets nicer and like it goes all the way up to like a Lamborghini, whatever,
Mhm.
people would wait up to 6 minutes to even honk the horn at a stoplight at that
See,
car.
now I would think that would be opposite. I thought it would
That's
be
why it's so
opposite.
powerful. But that's why it's so powerful.
Yeah. See, I would think that if you're in a Lamborghini and you're stopped at a stop sign and you're waiting, in some ways, it would be almost fun to honk that horn because because it's such a
You're not the
safe
average person. No, no,
situation.
you're not the average person. It'd be fun for you to honk the horn, but you have more confidence than most people, right? Most people are not business owners. Most
Yeah.
people are not like that kind of like, I guess that counterculture type, but
Yeah.
the majority, the population,
Yeah.
like the masses, just simply don't. And we might even, I would love to see that in like a kind of a blind study of you, because we think that we would, and maybe for you it would be, I don't know, like an Audi or a Rolls Royce. But there's something about it, like they
Yeah.
won't honk, and it's just crazy
Yeah, well,
to
there's
read.
that assumption. Well, they must know what they're doing. They look like they look like they're successful. So clearly, they know what they're doing. So maybe there's a reason why they're stopped at
I
that
think it
stop
takes I
sign for
think it
so
takes a
long.
certain level of confidence to dress nicer, to have to, and it takes more effort too. So
Yeah.
I think it's very easy to say, it's most of us want to say, oh, it doesn't matter, because it's easier not to get dressed up. Like getting dressed up more. I read this article about how much time we spend as humans grooming ourselves. And so just from a productivity standpoint, I'm like, oh my God, we spend so much time grooming ourselves as humans. Like, so if I have to put on, and when you get to the level that, like you're at, like time matters. Like 30, 20 minutes matters in your day when you're scheduling. So if I got to spend an extra 20 minutes dressing up to here,
Yeah.
right? Shaving every day or whatever, right? Whatever it is for any person,
Yeah.
like that takes time. It's a lot of time. It's actually a commitment. It seems like the dumbest thing, but it's a commitment. And a lot of
It
people
is a
don't want to say that.
commitment, but I think it's a commitment that's worth it. It is. I one of my pet peeves is with the LinkedIn
Yeah.
profile branding. I would have people, they would say, "Oh, Donna, I love the profile. I love what you've done. I mean, I look amazing." But, this person who I work with said to me, "It looks like I'm trying too hard.
Well,
It looks like I'm trying too hard." Now, we both are very well versed in that. Just like last
yeah.
week, the crab pulling person
Passive
back,
aggressive.
yeah,
Right.
pulling the crab back into the hot water. And I used to say, well, do they look like they're trying at all? Like, is that somehow better? Is that somehow better to look like you're not trying at all than to look like, and maybe you're not even looking like you're trying too hard. Maybe it just looks like you're trying, and that's a good thing,
I think
right?
so. I think so. And people will come up with all kinds of things. They'll call you elitist, whatever else. I'm like, yeah, well, I want to go for, I'm trying to increase my standards, not lower my standards. And I think also people, they see something that a billionaire does or whatever else. And like, oh, that's how you get to that level. You dress like in t-shirts and you say whatever you want, like, because that's how you can get to whatever your level of your field is. It's like, no, you have to compensate. People say, oh, you're overcompensating. You need to overcompensate because you haven't accomplished anything. You have done nothing. So you need to
Yeah.
compensate. Like seriously, like that for me, I'm like, I have to overcompensate. When I was, even right now, like I need to dress nicer than somebody that's way up here that I'm chasing because I'm compensating.
Yeah.
You would never tell, let's say, people love to watch sports movies. You would never tell an underdog who hasn't achieved greatness, like, well, you're overcompensating because you're doing two-a-days. Like you're training like stop training. The way to get there, that's what most of the people, even in our field, Donna, that do right now, they're like, do less, achieve more. Don't try too hard. If you let it come to you, it will come.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm like, you actually need to do some overcompensation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not there yet. And the only way you get there is by doing the extra training that other people aren't doing.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, and actually, there's that one in Unleash the Giant Within, the Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
the original
The
one,
original, the
the
originator. Yeah.
original one, and he had said how the way he got started speaking was he spoke 3 times a day, anywhere, wherever he
Anywhere.
could go, he was showing up to speak. And within 1 year, he had like 10 years of experience in speaking.
Right.
If you just sort of, put it, and I think that's so true. But unfortunately, people don't want to hear this.
No.
People want to buy the hope and the dream. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll just fall in your lap. Oh, you can do nothing and get something. Those are the people you listen to, and you want that to be true. I mean, everyone wants that to be true. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, you got to work hard. You got to put in on it, put in that effort. It's the only
And
way.
it's true. And there's ways and you got to kind of evaluate, and you can't take yourself out of the context that you're in. Like you might see some kid posting things on TikTok and have a huge following, but you're like, that's not going to work for you. I say that because a lot of people want to be influencers in like whatever way. It's like, well, what would work for you? Like where you might need to do some stuff offline first. You might need to go speak 3 or 4. I know a lot of people that do that, whether it's Tony Robbins. I mean, you could look at Gary Vaynerchuk's, the Grant Cardones, these people, like if you study them, and these are just people in our field, right? But if you study them, they all did that power speaking circuit for a while to really get out there, speaking maybe 3 times for free per day. I think of, Eric Thomas, who's great. Like he would just go to high schools and speak 3 or 4 times per day, full on, and then becomes one of the biggest speakers in the world. So I always tell people, like, act like you're running for president. Like, are you really doing everything to be successful? If you went out and just spoke everywhere that you could, because I mentioned that because, again, people run for president, they go to like in Iowa, like every 99 count, like they'll just go and meet as many. And sometimes you have these people that are actually very big names speaking to like 10 people at a time in Iowa, right? I see this and I'm like, that is the grind. Like if you really want to make whatever it is for you, like you're trying to get hired, even if you're not starting a business or anything, but you're trying to get hired, Are you going to every single job fair? Are you going to in person to meet these companies? Right? Anybody can do stuff online now. If you can't get through online, what are you doing in the real world? So anyway,
Yeah. Well, I remember reading an article years ago, back when the 4-hour work week had, hit its zenith.
yeah.
And the woman who wrote the article said, I want to be very clear that Tim Ferriss is where he is because he did not do a 4-hour work week.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's one of my favorite books of all time to read because that book is so much deeper and philosophical than uh, it's all about like a mindset that's very different that I think whatever it was 2005 where things shifted where you could do things online
Mhm.
and it was before work from home or anything. So it was so ahead of its time. So I will always love that book. But of course, if you read the book, it's right. Like he was making $80,000 a month grinding it out for years in a supplement company. In the book, it talks about it working 18 hours a day,
Yeah.
right? But that's a pretty $80,000 a month. I mean, in revenue is a good base, And then if you have a breakdown at that point, you can do that and then write this. And so, yeah, I think there's just a lot of books out there that are, I mean, they're all. I should get a list of them, right? Get
We should
double,
get a list together.
get double, do half, less, do more. And I think, and then there's the other people that go in the opposite direction. Like I mentioned, like Gary Vaynerchuk, for at least for a while, he was just like 18 hours a day, work every day. You got to find whatever it is for you. But I can tell you, if you're trying to get to a certain level, you're going to have to be switched on all the time, and you're going to have to be ready, and you're going to have to go through periods of massive stretching. Like if you want to get hired in today's job market, you have to go through a period of massive stretching where you might have to put in the hours that other people aren't. You might be in a job currently you don't like and you might have to work after that from 5 to midnight for a while. You might to get into a dream role. They're not just handing out, executive roles right now.
Yeah. And then it's at the same time, right? You also have to figure out where you want to go. If you're not
Sure.
willing to put in those hours, what are you willing to put into to achieve what you want? Because I think there is a balance to everything. I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
but figure out. Maybe you don't want to be in the C-suite. Maybe you want to land somewhere as an individual contributor role. There's nothing wrong with that either. But you have to figure out, where do you want to land? And what's going to get you there, and how can you do it in a smart way, but how can you do it knowing that you're really putting forth the effort to get there? I think it's the effort piece. Like, how much effort do you need to be putting
Yeah.
in there, investing, because it is an investment.
Well, and obviously, there. This is speaking to this audience. This is a leadership podcast, so you want to be a leader. So if this doesn't resonate with you, then you're listening to the wrong thing, right? So, like, because by definition, leadership means you are
Mhm.
above at a higher
Yeah.
standard than other people. There is separation, and that separation is not just going to happen. You can do it. Really, there's only two ways you can think about it, right? Work smart, work hard. It's usually a combination of both. You can have some sort of creative breakthrough that can blast you ahead, and that is real.
Mhm.
Like I know you've probably experienced this too. Like I've realized that the most important thing to being successful in business is having the right business model, right? It has
Mm.
nothing to do with, what do they call it, 0 to 1, right? Where if you shift the business model, things can take off. But if you're just trying to incrementally get better, eventually the market's going to shift. So it's like, so that's what I mean by like a creative. So creative
Right.
breakthrough, working smart is a real thing, but working hard is also a real thing. Like, cause you'll have a creative breakthrough and then it might be years of working hard in that new model.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to have another creative breakthrough and work. And same thing with careers. People get into a career, work hard for a few years, and then you need to have another breakthrough. It might be a promotion into a different role at that company, or more likely
Yeah.
in today's world, shifting to a different company to get into a higher level role.
I agree. And even as an individual contributor, right? You do. I think you can still be a leader as that individual contributor, and you still need to put all you can into it. Because ultimately, there's the brand. I always think in terms of the brand. Like,
Yeah.
how are you presenting yourself? How are you networking? How are you getting out there and meeting people? And like there's that brand. When people think of you after you walk in the room or you walk out of the room? What are they thinking? Whether it's the way you're dressed, whether it's how you speak and how you present yourself, it will always come down to the work that you do,
Yeah.
right? And how good was it? Because
Yeah.
you can put fluff on top of it, but ultimately the core, people will say, yeah, but the work really isn't there.
Yeah. If you think in percentages, you don't have to want to be the top 1% of your organization. Some people don't want that.
Mhm.
But I think if you're going to be a leader, maybe the top 20%, which could be, it may not, be the C-suite, may not even be VP, but you're definitely in whatever that department is, you're going to want to be one of the top
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And in some area, I bet it is. Let's say you want to be such a leader that they value you so much that you get to have better work-life balance or work remotely. Maybe that's what it is for you. Other people might just be straight up paycheck. So yeah, you got to set your standards, you got to set your goal, and then figure out how to be a leader in whatever that category is that gets you that goal.
Yeah. And to be the leader, you've got to make sure you're doing the right work. You're doing good work. You're working hard. You're making a difference. That's it all snowballs. It snowballs.
Best dressed or worst dressed. Yep.
What are you doing for July 4th?
Got one of those little packs of I don't know, sparklers for my kids. Not even the sparklers. I don't even feel good with sparklers with toddlers. So I have the ones they throw on the ground to pop.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I still remember those as a kid. I thought it was the most fascinating thing in the world, except for when I have to now clean it up after my kids.
It's a lot of tissue on the ground afterwards.
A lot of tissue. A lot of tissue. What about you?
We are doing a barbecue, hamburgers, hot dogs, and
Nice.
tomorrow we're actually going to go to our neighbor's house, and he's one of those fireworks guys. Like he gets the big tubes and he lights them and they go off. And my prayer is always that we all leave home with the same amount of fingers that we went in with.
I remember being awake when all the fireworks happened. Now twice a year I'm woken up from fireworks. Right, 4th of July and then
Probably New Year's, right?
New Year's. Yep, every time. I'm
Yeah.
always just like, what's happening? I'm like, New Year's again, and that's how I count the years. How many times I've been woken up from fireworks. Anyway,
Well, it has been a pleasure talking to you today, and I'll see you next Thursday.
see you next Thursday.